Hi, I'm Alicia.
And I'm Robin, and you're listening to Bowel Moments,
the podcast sharing real talk about the realities of IBD. Served on the rocks. This week, we talked to Mason Milne. Mason is the host of the Crohn's and Autism Awareness Advocate podcast. We talked to him about his Crohn's disease and his diagnosis when he was 17 years old. We talked to him about how he started his podcast. We talked to him about what it's like living with Crohn's and autism. And we talked to him about what it's been like to navigate the medical system and any advice he has for other people living with autism. We talked to him about all the unique series that he does for his podcast and how he decides on what to record. And we talked to him about his absolute love of Doctor Who. Cheers!
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bowel Moments. This is Robin.
Hey, guys. This is Alicia, and we are absolutely excited to be joined by Mason Milne. Mason, thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
And as you can hear, American listeners, by Mason's accent, he is one of our international guests. And so I'm very excited to potentially maybe ask you about the healthcare system where you are, but that's always a bit of a can of worms to open. But we're going to start out with a very unprofessional question of what are you drinking?
Water, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, water.
That's a common one for our folks. That makes a lot of sense. Robin, what about you?
As per usual, I have flat water, sparkling water, and coffee.
We might have to start changing this question, Robin. I think you and I are like getting a little boring. But, and since it is an earlier in the day conversation for us, I am just drinking coffee today. Well, it's a latte, but a little less exciting than typical. Mason, next question for you. Tell us your IBD story. What brings you into our community?
So to everyone, I've got Crohn's disease, and I was diagnosed with that in 2017. And yeah, so it was quite a story, really. I was diagnosed there, but how it all came about was, first of all, I lost quite a lot of weight, and I was struggling to eat anything really without having any pain, and so I had to really get checked and see what was going on, because I didn't know of Crohn's or IBD before. I had never heard of it, so it was all pretty new really to me. And I didn't have any friends, because when you get diagnosed, they told me it's rare, not many like at that time. And I thought maybe, there's some like things out there that only one person out of loads of people have it. And I thought that's what it was. And then I was glad when there were other people that have IBD too, just so you don't feel as alone like that.
So how old were you in 2017?
It was just after my birthday. So it was like October 2017. So I would have been turning 17.
And you hadn't had any symptoms before that?
No. So, well, not as such. But when I was younger, I was very poorly baby. I was a very poor baby. So I had pneumonia growing up. I was very ill when I was really young. So I don't know if that had anything to do with that. What I might have had Crohn's a long time ago. But it just the pain didn't settle in until 2017.
Okay. So that was the primary reason for you going to the doctor, was that just every time you ate, you had pain?
Yeah. So I didn't want to go to. I ended up going to A&E. And it wasn't ideal because I knew if so I went about 3:00 in the morning. I was in so much pain I couldn't sleep, and I was thinking, there's no point. Which I was right. I was waiting until the morning anyway. So I was there, waiting till like 6:00, 7:00 to get seen. Anyway, so it's quite terrible when if you have IBD and if something like that happens, you go to A&E unit, not something else. Where like A&E, in my opinion, is for physical injuries, and that wasn't a physical injury. So I'm going there, and they're saying, "What are you here for? You haven't got any like." They can't see it, of course, so they think, why am I there? So yeah, it wasn't a very nice experience getting diagnosed, really.
No, I think that happens here in the United States as well, is, when you go for abdominal pain, you get a little bit dismissed, I think, in the emergency rooms, because like you said, it's your leg isn't broken, you're not bleeding, openly bleeding, actively outside of your body bleeding. And so they kind of go, okay, abdominal pain, you're drug seeking. They think you're trying to get pain medication, or, they're like, I can probably wait. I think you sort of get a little dismissed. So that can be very frustrating, especially when you're in pain and you're sitting there waiting and waiting. So you're in the UK, just for all of our listeners, you live in the UK. Where do you live?
Just so American listeners know, because if I tell you where I live, you have no idea where it is.
Fair.
So I'll tell you where I live. I do live in Essex, but that's not far from London. So there's about maybe an hour if you drove or get a train to London. But I don't go to London often. You'll find that if you live somewhere near, so say if anyone in America, you lived near New York or you lived in New York, you probably wouldn't visit the sites if you lived there prior. So if you came for a holiday near London, you probably I want to go see Big Ben. I want to go on the London Eye. I've only been on the London Eye probably twice when I was younger, but yeah. So that's where I live.
So for folks that are in the UK though, is this the best way to potentially get to a specialist, is to go through the A&E, or did you end up having to, after that visit to the A&E, see your primary care physician anyway? What got you to a gastroenterologist?
So you'd go to your doctor's surgery half a dozen times. And there was a problem with that. So even when getting diagnosed, a lot of doctors would not think it's that serious. So I did have an appointment with the gastro. Like it was like kind of where they put the camera up and down, and that appointment was going to be in a few months, and we said, if that I might not even be here, it's that bad. I'm in so much pain. I can't be doing this for another few months, which could potentially lead into the following year. So we had to really fight to get the appointment. So it wasn't easy to do that. And the annoying thing is, so if you have really something wrong with your Crohn's, you will go to your doctor's surgery where you go there with any problems, if it's Crohn's or not, but they will anyway if it's something serious, they'll transfer you to the hospital, really. So it's kind of annoying how things are done, because it's almost like it would be so much easier to go to them first rather than going to somewhere else that they're going to transfer you there anyway.
Yes. Yeah. I think we also struggle with that. It's of being able just to go straight to the person that would probably be the best person to talk to. I'm sure there's arguments on both sides about why you should do one way or the other, but it can be very frustrating. I mean, if you have abdominal pain, probably feels like you should see a gastroenterologist. But so you didn't know about Crohn's before that. And I think that's very common for people to not know about inflammatory bowel diseases before they're diagnosed. Robin, did you know about IBD before you were diagnosed?
I actually had a college roommate that had been diagnosed with Crohn's, but we didn't do research to find out what it was. Plus, I was in college before dinosaurs roamed the earth, so there wasn't the internet. So you would literally have to go to a library to, find information, or a phone book. So no, I had heard of it because of my roommate's diagnosis, but I didn't know what that meant except for her symptoms, right? I knew what her symptoms were and what she had to do for it, but not anything further than that. So when I was diagnosed, I was like, oh, this is that. Great. And fun fact, that roommate, it was celiac. She was misdiagnosed with Crohn's and she actually had celiac. Crazy story.
She must have been really inflamed from her celiac, though. That's
right.
Wow, that's amazing. Mason, I'm assuming your family also didn't know what Crohn's disease was about. So when you were diagnosed, how did your family react to this? What was their response and take on you having Crohn's?
It was very hard because, of course, it affects the whole family. And I guess you realise when you get diagnosed, and even now actually, who are your friends and your family as well, because they'll be there for you and they'll understand, even if they don't have it themselves. So with Crohn's, you'll find some people will have it in their family. So you might have a couple people in your family that have it too. And in my case, I don't. So no one in my family has Crohn's at all. So I was the only one. And as well as that, me having it, but in the family, other people down the line maybe have things wrong with their bowels or have had bowel cancer and stuff. I know that's not Crohn's, but I guess it's in the IBD. It's all about your bowels and stuff. So I guess I don't know if that is a reason. There's so many reasons you could say why you have it. We could probably do another podcast about that, saying I might have Crohn's because of that or something else. But really, so I remember going I stayed in hospital for a fair while, and my dad would stay overnight with me in the hospital, and because I'm attached to the cannula, probably getting moved around a lot, so he would stay there. And I think maybe they try hide their emotion to me because they don't want to upset me even more than I probably am upset because of everything that's going on. So they might have a cry outside or something. So it is hard. It's hard for me because I have the thing, but it is hard for family as well because they are impacted. The lives are kind of changed. It won't be the same again than it ever was before.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think these chronic illnesses do affect everybody in the family. And as somebody who is the family member of somebody living with a chronic illness, it's difficult for us as well. I know that's I mean, obviously we're not living with the disease, but you're right, having to kind of stay quiet or stay strong when, the other person is really suffering. It's so hard to see somebody suffer and not feel well and be in a hospital bed. And so I'm sure that was very difficult for your parents. Obviously not the same level of not pain, physical pain, but it's challenging.
Yeah, it is quite bad and it's hard really. And still today, like maybe friend wise, still today people won't understand what it is. And even recently actually, people would say you're making it up, or your Crohn's, you're making your Crohn's up, you're only thinking about your own beliefs, because everyone with Crohn's is different, or colitis. So even maybe some people with Crohn's don't understand your personal situation. To say someone else has Crohn's and I have Crohn's too, but I want to be careful. So I want to be careful with how I go about things because of the medication I'm on and how much it puts you at risk. But someone else with Crohn's might be like, I'm on that too, but I can get on with my life. So people are different, but maybe other people with Crohn's may not understand as well. Yeah. So it's still, that's even hard to say if someone else with Crohn's doesn't understand, says get on with your life. So it's hard. It's still hard because I think everyone looks on the disease in a different way, and it's hard when people accuse you of things. If they accuse you of things and saying you've got to do that, and it's difficult.
Yeah, I think that, and we've talked about this a little bit on the show, and especially diet, the diet thing becomes a real hot topic with our community because, food is scary because, like you said, every time you ate, you were in pain. And so that makes it really scary to eat, and people can believe very firmly in the thing that they're doing is the best thing. And that can sometimes be a little bit controversial in the community if you say, well, I'm going to do something different, and everybody kind of thinks they're doing it the right way, maybe. And that can be difficult because you're right. Everybody kind of has their opinion on how you should be dealing with your disease. And Robin is good about not saying, well, you're doing that wrong. And I know lots and lots of people are good about saying you're doing it wrong, but there can be some folks that get real no, the only thing to do is to celery juice for the rest of your life,
So disappointing. Kind of yeah. I also have to remind myself and sometimes gently remind other people that IBD is a spectrum diagnosis. And so some people have very mild cases and their experience is going to be very different from mine, who had a severe case and has had multiple surgeries and all of those things. So yes, somebody with a mild case or even mild to moderate might be able to control it with diet. But somebody like me who has had multiple surgeries and your colon removed and all that stuff, that's not going to work for me because yes, I have tried it. Believe me, I've tried it. Mason, it can be frustrating just when other people with the diagnosis look at you and say, well, if you had just done this, then you wouldn't be in the situation you're in, or you didn't do it right, or you didn't do it perfectly. And that's why you're in the situation. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not our fault. I didn't do this to myself. And so, those conversations are so hard, even after 20 plus years.
You said it in your podcast too, Mason, and Robin has said this before, everybody's disease is so individualized, what your Crohn's disease is different than Robin's Crohn's disease, even though they're both Crohn's disease, and so you may not ever need the surgeries that Robin has had for any number of reasons. We don't really know why. So I think that was a good thing for you to highlight in your podcast.
Yeah, there's so many people are different and how they go about their day-to-day life. So some people with Crohn's might want to be more riskier, let's say, than other people. And what I mean by that is you might want to do more things where you're really ill, but you still want to do things and whatever the cost. Like the other day, someone actually said to me that they would compare, they'll be quite judgy. So what they said to me was because I take cancer, drugs that cancer patients take for my Crohn's, and what they would say to me is cancer is worse than Crohn's. But what I would think to myself when they say that is you can't really compare them. Cancer is cancer and Crohn's is Crohn's, and they all have their struggles. And cancer isn't Crohn's and Crohn's isn't cancer. But you may take drugs for cancer that you take for Crohn's, but it doesn't mean you should compare them because that isn't really good because they're totally different things, really.
I always say it's not a competition. I'm not in competition with somebody who has cancer, and somebody who has cancer is not in competition with somebody who has Crohn's. We both, like you said, exactly, we both have our struggles and they're completely different.
Yeah, and when you have your Crohn's, you kind of realise who your friends are as well. I think because like even the past few days, I've kind of realised who some of mine are, who maybe I thought was because they would talk about maybe other. I've got another person with Crohn's, and I'd say I can't do this, and they'd say, well, I'll tell my mate who's got Crohn's as well, and like so basically saying if another person can with Crohn's can do this means I can. That's what they're trying to say, and that's being quite really judgmental, really, and it will affect your mental health saying stuff like that about it because, like, you'd say maybe you can't work because you're releasing blood daily, and they'd be like, "Well, I'll go and tell my friend that then," and which they work their butt off every day. So it does like we say, you kind of realize who your friends are when you do different podcasts or different maybe articles. That it kind of helps with that.
Speaking of podcasts, so your podcast is called Crohn's and Autism Awareness Advocate. And also you were assisting, or you were one of the hosts with our other guest, Jordan McConnell, on the Crohn's Veterans podcast as well. So you are a prolific podcaster, really. And so talk to me about, how did you start your podcast? Because from what I saw of your podcast, it looks like you started this during the pandemic. So talk to me about like what gave you this idea? How did you get started? And tell me a little bit more about that.
So I never heard of a podcast before I started it. So I started around the pandemic when we was all locked in and trying to find things to do really. First of all, I talk on my own. I had the app on my phone and I wouldn't do it like this online like this. I basically had the phone and I'd record myself just speaking, like a voice note kind of thing. So I'd do that and maybe like 20-30 minutes just talking about, maybe I think the first episode might have been about Crohn's, my story. Then the next episode's about autism. And then I think maybe IBD Day was coming up, so I do an IBD Day special. And then I think I did 3 or 4 episodes, and then I thought to myself, hang on a minute, people are going to get bored of me speaking on my own, and I think I'll get bored as well. So an organisation I'm part of called the Multi Schools Council, and what they do is they support people with different differences like autism, ADHD, deaf awareness, dyspraxia awareness, dyslexia awareness, so yeah, even Crohn's as well. So kind of helping lots of young people out there. So the curator of that, I had him on first. So he was my first ever guest I had on, and then from there I did like maybe series 1, series 2, series 3. And then after a few series, I thought to myself, hang on a minute, I'm not going to do series anymore. I'm just going to do different series rather than calling it series 1, series 2, series 3. Because I just I feel like I have to do a series every year where I can just do different series about different things. So after time, I did it, record on Zoom, speaking to different people, and then I thought it was just going to be a lockdown thing, really, and then it turned to maybe more permanent. Like it's still like a side hobby kind of thing. So I don't get paid for doing it. Maybe I should. I do think that now. Maybe I should, but I don't know how to. But
Unfortunately, we can't help you with that either.
yes. But with it, so like with Jordan, so how me and Jordan met, we was on Instagram. He sprung up on. I got a message from him on Instagram, and he was saying, "I want to do it Instagram live." So I did it Instagram live. I just started a podcast. I virtually just started it, and he got the idea, so he started his own podcast, and then I think I went on his podcast for a few episodes, and then his brother actually has autism, so he is actually a graphic designer, so he helps me with my podcast, so he'll create graphics for it, but he create the logo for it. So he's got autism. So yeah, that's how we met, and then he done his podcast, and then we've kept in touch and we've done various different things. But yeah, so and that's how it's kind of gone, really.
How do you come up with the ideas for your series? And look, I mean, you have so many episodes. Like I was looking at all of your episodes. And I'm like, I don't even know how to like ask you about every single one of these, but I'm curious, like, because you talk to some women about bodybuilding and fitness. There's a whole series about Doctor Who, which we're going to come back to that in a second. But how do you choose your different topics that you're going to sort of keep a series on?
So I kind of relate to what's going on in the world. So like, for example, I'm going to do a series in a few months, which I'm recording now, called The Vulnerable. So what The Vulnerable is about is me and another person who's got a chronic illness. So that's who it's going to be about, the vulnerable. So really, people with chronic illnesses and helping them to tell their story. So they might have Crohn's, they might have something completely different. Like, it's really interesting because as much as I like talking about Crohn's, I like talking to different people that have different chronic illnesses as well. So because you can understand them and they can tell their story, even maybe a chronic illness I haven't heard of before. Because people out there can have so many of them. I think sometimes we're fortunate if we just have Crohn's by itself. Some people might have Crohn's, they might have someone else on top of that maybe complicates things. So that's that one. So I'll do mental health. So like mental health month, I'll do with a person from America actually who's got Crohn's and is a mental health kind of, I'd say, cancer coach, and we called the series Mental Health Awakening. It kind of awakens it, and you get different people. That's another one. Autism, sometimes do an autism series. So kind of relate it. Say it's May normally Mental Health Month, and April's normally Autism Month. So you've got all these different months that you do these things for. And I did have a little break because I did so many. So over the winter and stuff, and I had a break, but it's hard because you have to try and release them you schedule it and what you want to call the episode, because you can't ask the guest what you're going to call it. So I sometimes do. I say to them, what do you want your episode to be called? And then I don't think they know, so I just pick it.
You are definitely more creative in your titles than we are with ours. Yours is just going to be Meet Mason, frankly. So maybe we have to up our game, Robin.
I mean, we are talking about that new little series where we're just chatting. Spoiler alert, I'm working on a YouTube. I'm working on a YouTube channel. Spoiler alert, everybody. So, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I can get creative, but why? This is Meet Mason. We're talking to Mason. So why wouldn't we say Meet Mason?
I know, but yours are very good. Okay, so the mental health awareness, that totally makes sense. And I do like that you bring in folks with other chronic illnesses as well. I think that's a really unique take on it. But the name of your podcast does reference the fact that you are also living with autism in addition to Crohn's disease. And so can we talk a little bit about how having autism as part of everything you're coping with has influenced kind of your care or your approach to living with Crohn's disease? Talk a little bit more about if you don't mind, about your autism.
Yeah, so with my autism, I was diagnosed when I was 9, so in 2009. And so with my autism, so it affects me where I don't like certain things. So I don't like getting touched when I'm not allowing it. To say someone comes up and touches me or hugs me. Because some people with autism can be really huggy and some people can't. So I'm in that kind of bracket where I don't like getting touched or people getting close to me anyway. So which was good when the pandemic was on because people wouldn't go near because you had social distancing. But then as soon as the government say, okay, we don't have to do that anymore, so everyone's close. So like only last year, I think it was last year or the year before, I went to Cardiff, which is in Wales, and was getting lost, trying to find a certain place, and this stranger and gentleman came up and said, do you need help? You lost? And I said, yeah, that'd be lovely. And then, but he was getting so closer and closer. He was getting, and I try and not say anything. And then, like, you try not to come across rude because if I say, can you not get close? There's either two ways they can do it. They could be like really friendly and say, okay, sure, I'll stand back. Or they might think it in the concept, I'm trying to help you. You're telling me to go back. And he did it in that way. So he said, all right, and he just walked off. So it's really hard because it's not just because of having Crohn's about being careful on that. Anyway, I don't like it. I don't like it anyway. So if it's just in general. I don't think people understand social distance. Just do it anyway. It's just about personal space. So that's one thing I don't like. I also don't like noise. So certain noise. So it happened today actually. So I was eating my lunch, watching the telly, and you've got my dad and my mum eating a bag of crisps. Cheese and onion. I don't care what flavour it is, but I just thought I'd say it's cheese and onion. So they're both eating cheese and onion crisps. I like cheese and onion crisps. And I can cope. Well, I can't actually cope. But I said to my mum, I could probably more cope with one, but 2 bags of crisps, 2 people eating 2 bags of crisps at the same time, it's very sensory to me, so I don't like it. And sometimes, for a laugh, people might, if they say no, it annoys you, they make more noise. So it annoys you even more. So that's one thing I don't like about eating, people making really loud noises. It's different. So say we all were in a restaurant and we had a meal and we were eating. I wouldn't mind that because it's surround sound, so like loads of people doing it. But if it's just like 1 or 2, it just really impacts me. So another thing about eating is so say you eat a soup, which this really annoys me. So say someone eats a soup and they make so much noise. eating that soup, I think to myself, hang on a minute. I would understand if it was a meal where you had to cut stuff up and it needs to make noise, but a soup, you can drink a soup potentially. It's like a drink, and then people are putting the spoon at the bottom of the plate, making that banging noise. I just say, silence, silence. But yeah, it's just stuff like that. It's very sensitive with my autism, where it's really impacted. Maybe some people understand, maybe some people don't, but that could be really hard.
I understand you, and I've not been diagnosed with autism. And because
Me
honestly,
too.
yeah, everything you just described, I'm like, yes, that sounds awful. I hate that. Especially like chips, like because the bag is crinkly and the chips are loud, and people sometimes chew with their mouth open. Like there's so much that can go wrong. So much that's annoying about that. So I'm with you. And the one thing I asked you sort of before we hit record is, as you've been interacting with the medical system, and this has come up in the last couple of several episodes we've had kind of recently, where we've talked to either providers or patients around consent and touching in the context of being in the medical community. It's like once you are sort of in the hospital, your body becomes kind of not your own. You know, it becomes the thing that they're working on and not necessarily Mason's body or Alicia's body or Robin's body. And so I am curious, when you're going into a medical situation, a medical interaction, how are you communicating with them around the consent for you to be comfortable with them to do procedures or to work with you? Like, you know, you said being in the hospital for a couple of weeks, there's lots of stuff. Like you're sleeping and they come in and check your blood pressure and they check things. And there's a lot that happens in a hospital setting where you're touched and you don't have as much control over that.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Like yeah. So you would go in. I always like to be informed. So what's going on? So they actually tell you. Sometimes they probably may not tell you what's happening. Like I don't like handshake. So people, as I say, if you don't handshake someone, like it's like a greet, isn't it? And I don't like handshakes. I don't like them because you don't know where people's hands have been, do you? And my response is very simple to people that I don't even know to explain my Crohn's to them, because I'll just say I'm not a handshake. I'll probably do it like, can we do elbows or something? But yeah, so some people may get funny about it. Like if they try it the first time, so to say I've been in hospital plenty of times, and like they would do these procedures, like you'd get more comfortable with the same person doing it. So for example, when I went for infusions for my Crohn's, I would get uncomfortable with someone else I didn't know was doing them. So for example, once a trainee came in, and like the person normally does it, asked, can this person like practice on you and just check out like what to do? And I said, sure, because I don't like saying no, and I feel bad. So these things take a couple of minutes, though. They don't even take a couple of minutes. To put the cannula in, that's all they needed to do. So I make sure whenever I go for a blood test or an injection that I drink. So I drink a litre of juice or something, because that makes your blood flow in the morning. So if they say to me that they can't find my where to put the needle, I'll be saying to them, maybe you're not doing it right, because I've had plenty to drink. My blood is fairly easy to find, like in the veins. So this person, we was here 5 minutes. There's nothing. She still couldn't find nothing. And my dad was with me, so I wasn't comfortable to say no. So he said, it's not working here. Can you stop? And she did, and the main person did it in a couple seconds. So it's a good job I did this, though. It's a good job, because the lady who was training on me goes to the man across and does it wrong. So she does it wrong where she's put the needle in not properly. And I imagine they're in so much pain and they're having to do the whole thing again. So I think they can try on people, but they just need to make sure they're qualified more than trying on humans. Just do more on a dummy, which they would do anyway, but or just try on one of the staff. Don't try on the patients, I'd say. Try on the staff more so, and then you can easily take it out. So I think things like that, I haven't done it for a while, so I don't know if they still do that. I imagine they do. I imagine all hospitals do. But I just think they need to be more careful about just how they go about things.
I love that suggestion about them trying on the staff or trying on each other over learning how to do it on patients. Then they'll know how it feels. Oh my gosh. I actually laughed out loud when you said that, but I was on mute because I was just like, oh my gosh, brilliant. But then my daughter is in nursing school. So I'm like, I don't know if I want people practicing on her, but it would be a good learning experience.
Well, and or use tools to help you figure out how to do it while you're training, because like there are vein finders and things like that you can use that help you make sure you're finding the right vein. And the vein finders even show where the valves are and things like that so that you make sure you're not going in the wrong spot. So, like use the tools that are at your disposal to learn how to do it better, or do it right the first time. And then once you kind of get the feel for it, I think, most nurses, once they get the feel for it, they kind of like, oh, okay, I know. And I have terrible veins because I don't drink water basically ever. And so, I'm the worst stick. So I probably would have told the girl, no, you cannot train on me. I'm not, probably not your right girl. Yeah, I think there's ways about it. I'm also curious about like procedures though, because I know we've talked to some folks, especially, that there's having to have like exams, very invasive exams at times, like rectal exams and things like that. Same thing. Like if you're somebody living with autism and you do have sensory issues or you have issues with people touching you, how do you go into your conversation with your doctor? How do you prepare yourself? And then how do you prepare the medical team that's going to work with you to make sure that experience is as calm and smooth and comfortable as possible for you?
I think when I had my colonoscopy, I had a nurse, family friend, so she was there, like I guess supporting me, especially for the first time when I was getting diagnosed. And she was there, even though she doesn't really like the person that was doing it herself. So she put that aside. And just did it. So she was there. So because it was hard because like with doing the colonoscopy, you're like UK were awake during it, so that they would put the thing down your throat, then down your back passage, and yeah, so it's difficult because like you could do like two appointments, but rather just get it done and over and done with. Like you'd be sedated, or you could have the gas and air. But I've had both. I think gas and air is probably a little bit better, but the only difference if you no, actually the sedation is better. But the only thing is that you would have to stay an extra like 30 minutes just to make sure you don't have any reactions to it. But if you have the gas and air, you can just go home afterwards. But I think the sedation is more or less painless than the gas and air. Because I think when I had the gas and air, I was just doing it and doing it and doing it. And I was saying to them, oh, I'm just doing it for the sake of it now. I shouldn't have said that, to be fair, because they took it away. And when I was in pain, I couldn't have it. So and then I was screaming. I wasn't screaming. I was just saying it's hurting. So I think they couldn't see all what they wanted to see. So I said, pass it back. So probably the sedation's better, but I did it because I didn't want to stay any longer. I just wanted to go home. And they used to have toast. So because you can't eat for a long period of time, and when I had my colonoscopy, like you'd have to prep's horrible. It was, but it's supposed to make you go to the toilet. And for me, it didn't. I thought someone was wrong because I didn't go to the toilet at all. And the reason for that, because I was empty anyway. I wasn't eating anything. Anyway. So, and they said I was empty. I was probably one of the most people they've ever had that's been empty. So I was thinking, I'm waiting to go to the toilet here, but it didn't work. But then the toast that I had afterwards was nice. That's probably the nicest food I've ever had after having a procedure.
Yeah, best toast you've ever eaten. That usually is whatever food you've eaten after a colonoscopy is probably the best food you're going to eat for a while. For Robin, I think that was we went and got fried rice after one time when I was with you.
Yes, we did fried rice. It was delicious.
But I'm reacting to the fact that you were entirely empty and then you were doing prep. Like, what does that do to you? I'm so curious because like that feels like that's not good. I don't know.
I think I had it every 15 minutes, and I was saying, if it's to mum, you're poisoning me, because it's every 15 minutes. It takes me 15 minutes to drink one drink of it.
Yeah,
it did, and I didn't drink it all. I couldn't drink it all. I had enough. I had a sick bucket next to me in case I was sick. But yeah, it wasn't ideal, that prep drink. It's not nice, but yeah, I thought, why do I need it if it's not if I'm empty anyway? But I guess just to be on the safe side, that I think they said.
Robin, I do think from now on we're going to start referring to this as back passage. I think that is like the nicest way to say that.
100%. As soon as Mason said that, I was like, note to self.
I know. I love it.
What do you normally say?
Oh, we just say the body parts.
Yeah,
rectum, anus. Yeah.
Yeah, we're a little more we're a little vulgar, I think is how that goes. sticking with autism for a little while longer. Yeah, at the end of the show, we always ask, what's your one piece of advice for the IBD community? In this case, I'm going to ask you, what is your advice that you would give to our healthcare professionals that have patients that do have autism or are living with autism?
I'd say be careful of how you say things.
Okay.
Don't be forceful and don't expect people to understand what you're saying to them. If they need explaining maybe more than once, don't get annoyed with them. Just explain it. Because that's why lots of people who have autism don't ask for help or anything when things are wrong, because they will just expect people not to listen to them or not even to understand something properly, which might be properly to the person explaining it, but it might not be the person receiving it. So yeah, I'd say just be patient with them and just try and just be nice to them, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's good advice for everybody, because especially when you receive a diagnosis, somebody's newly diagnosed, you don't know what's going on, you don't know what these people are talking about, and they say you have Crohn's disease. A lot of times people kind of shut down and they don't hear anything after that. And so you're right, they don't necessarily hear or receive the information in a way that they actually can take in. And so you do probably have to go back and say, okay, ask questions now, or what part of this do you need me to repeat, or just kind of say it again. Because I do think it's sort of, you get this chronic illness diagnosis and you just kind of go, your brain shuts down. So I think it's good for healthcare providers to sort of say, okay, I'm going to come back and ask you, what did you hear me say? What did you take from whatever the conversation was, so that I can help make sure that you understand it? Because that it can be very damaging when people don't know what they're dealing with, and then they start doing research on Dr. Google, and that's filled with bad information.
Yes.
Mason, getting back to your podcast, you've had so many guests and so many interesting conversations. I'm curious if you have some that particularly stand out. I mean, I don't want you to play favorites, of course, but I'm curious if there were some conversations that you thought, holy cow, this is going to be an amazing episode, or this was an amazing episode.
Yeah, I do have a favourite. It's probably the most popular episode I think that I've done. It's with his name's Paul McGann. So he was a doctor on Doctor Who, and yeah, it was really interesting because we didn't just talk about that. We talked about Crohn's, playing Crohn's thing, 'cause he didn't know what it was. And when I met him, he wondered why I had a mask on and stuff like that. So he understands that. And I talked about autism as well, about maybe the schedule. To say Doctor Who used to be on a Sunday, which I didn't really like. I didn't like that. And I preferred it on Saturday nights. And he's saying around maybe why does that bother you? Would it bother you if you just had a 30-minute episode and it was good rather than an hour? So it was really good. It was like 2 hours long, and it took about another half an hour because he couldn't hear me, because he had to wake his son up. He has to wake his son up. This one on film, but he woke his son up to help him do it. So yeah, that was really good, because I didn't think, like I said to him, I've never had a doctor from Doctor Who, and I love Doctor Who, and I would love that if you come on. He said, yeah. He emailed me after I gave him that letter. He emailed me 30 minutes later to arrange it, and we did that the following Wednesday when we done it. And I did that around June last year, and it didn't get out till November, because that's when the Doctor's 60th anniversary was last year. And then what else happened is, because he is the 8th Doctor in Doctor Who, and I got the costume he has in Doctor Who all made. It's all actually from the show and everything, from the tailor. So when I saw him in December, or just before 60th, or in November, and we both had our outfits on and pictures. So it was lovely. And supposed to be seeing him again in a couple of weeks as well. So that is my favourite one. And I think on YouTube it's quite popular. A lot of people comment, and a lot of people say, I don't know how you've done it, and I don't either, really. I don't either, but that's the best one, I'd say. But they're not saying that everyone else aren't. That everyone else is good. But if you get a more famous person on the podcast, you're gonna enjoy it, I think.
That is amazing.
It is. And we don't use our video, but if we were using our video, people would be able to tell that you're a Doctor Who fan, because behind you is pictures of Doctor Who and a blanket of Doctor Who, and you've got the police box behind you. And so it is clear that you're a fan. So I can imagine that would have been an amazing episode to do. Wow.
Yes. And it's not the only Doctor Who person I've had on. I've had various others as well. Maybe not doctors, but I had someone that was in the Doctor Who the movie who played alongside Paul McGann, but he has Crohn's. I didn't know this, so I messaged him
Oh my
And I said,
gosh.
love you to come on my podcast. You was in Doctor Who. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. I also have Crohn's, Mason, as well. So I'd like to talk to you about that. So he's talking about his Crohn's as well, which was the reason he wanted to come on. And it's really awesome. I had that person on. I had a few people. So whenever I go to a convention, I use that opportunity to write a guest I want on a letter and see if they respond. Some people don't respond. So you see
Yeah.
David Tennant here. I've asked him, but he don't respond. Obviously because he's so popular. So
Yes.
so I don't mind if they don't respond. It's just I've made an effort to do that to them because I'm paying for their time for like a photo and autograph. So I know I don't have to pay any more to get them on. So because I don't like paying for guests. I pay for one guest, and that's only because they were in Doctor Who. But I try not to. I get guests on who want to be on the show.
Yeah.
And they wanna share their story and about themselves. So yeah. And apart from that Doctor Who series I've done, I did Doctor Who in Autism series. Was
Yeah.
basically I had people have autism and like Doctor Who because for some reason in Doctor Who community, lots of people are autistic.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
a lot of people have autism, and so I've done that. So and also I have people who don't have autism and they
Mhm.
just like Doctor Who, so we could raise awareness of autism at the same time. So any series I do that maybe you don't think's got to do with autism or even Crohn's at all does. So I will
Huh.
mention it. I will mention it, which is why in
Yeah.
the logo I have hobbies. I think at the top. So I'll have hobbies. So that's Doctor Who for maybe one football. I might do a thing about football. Coming up in a few months, a show The Traitors that was on the telly. Having a few people that be on there, and they are neurodivergent, so they have maybe ADHD or autism as well. So that's relating into it. So I kind of like to relate it to it, and it's just nice. So you can talk about your hobbies as long as sharing your story at the same time.
I love that. Well, and I'm curious for the gentleman that was on Doctor Who that was a supporting character that has Crohn's disease. Did he talk about what it was like to be on a set like that and to have a disease that requires you to potentially maybe not be able to? Is he having symptoms while he's on set? Like, how did he handle having Crohn's symptoms while also being an actor?
I think for a fair time he had a really rough time of it with it. I think he was diagnosed after. It might have been during it.
Wow.
I forgot. He said how hard it was. It's funny. He said how he got the part of Doctor Who was being late for the audition. I only thought he wasn't going to get it. So they said they liked that about him that he was late, so he got the part. So and it weren't just that; it was his personality, I think, as well that they liked for the certain character that he played. So yeah, he talked about Crohn's, about how his journey is with it, and how I think he's had it for a while. I think he's had it about 10 years. And I messaged people by chance and to see if they reply or not, because you just never know. So it was a fair while since he replied. I think about a month or two. A couple of people, maybe more well-known people, they answer. So it's good. It's good when you have people like that. And then I like to. So say if I get an answer like that, I won't tell anyone. I kind of build it up. So say I'd put on. I've had a doctor on from Doctor Who. I think at the time I put a post on. I had a doctor. I've had another person, and it worked really well with the 60th anniversary last year because you'd have specials around it, not going on the same days as the actual show, but I also like on my podcast to have seasonal episodes. So to say we have a Christmas special or an Easter special, which I am at Easter soon. So on Monday, it's actually going to be the first episode of the year on my podcast because I had a break. So this person was actually on Sarah Jane Adventures is a spin-off of Doctor Who, and he's the composer of it, and he also The Traitors, which I mentioned, he does the music for that. And sometimes you have to be really careful with if you talk about. It's all right it's all right if they haven't been in it years, but if they've just been in and they've just been making it, they can't tell you certain details. You can ask, but they have to be cut out. So I've had guests that have been on shows where their agent has had to be in the background, so it has to be all professional. So it's really interesting if you get a chance to get these kind of people on. But I'd say I think on YouTube that Paul McGann episode's got 2.7k views on it, and I was shocked. I was shocked by it because on YouTube it depends how it does. Like one episode might get 100, one episode might get that. And I guess it got that because of how people love him. People love him. It's not just that he's been in one episode of Doctor Who and a few cameos, and it's more so. But if you go to convention, his line's crowded, and people love him just for what he's like. Such a really kind person, and he'll spend time talking to you for a good 5-6 minutes. So yeah, it's nice. It's very nice.
That's so fun to be able to do that and to maybe hear a little bit of the inside scoop on some of this. The composer sounds amazing. I'm always impressed with people who have that mind, that have that ability to come up with tunes like that, just sort of be able to watch something and say, okay, this is the music that should go along with this scene. God, what a cool episode. I love that. It sounds like you are very good about recruiting for guests. So that's very impressive.
Yeah.
There is an episode that I've got, like, Doctor Who magazine. So I collect this Doctor Who magazine probably every month, and an editor of it, I was able to interview them, and they're very funny actually. And it's quite cool because this was kind of the 600th ever issue of it, and that's the TARDIS, and you can all the issues that's been before that they're in it. So they went to the TARDIS and they put them all over, scattered. Took them hours to do it.
I bet.
But I like it because getting people on like that, they might be able to get, I don't know, the current Doctor or the person who writes the show. So it's lovely. It is lovely when speaking to different people like that.
So who's your favorite Doctor thus far?
Prior to me and Paul McGann, it was David. Well, it still is David Tennant. So I've always loved David Tennant as the Doctor, but I love Paul McGann because he came on my podcast and. He's just a nice man. So he's very underrated. So my top 3 actually would be David Tennant, Paul McGann, and Matt Smith. So that's the 10th Doctor. You could say 10th / the 14th Doctor, the 8th and the 11th. Because I think with the 11th Doctor, actually, a lot of people in the autism community relate to him because of how what the Doctor does is hide their emotions. And that say if you're in trouble, they won't tell them to make them not panic. And some people with autism do that. So say if you need help, you won't ask help because you're too afraid that other people won't do it, help you. Because a lot of people, so I did that actually for a while. So when I was younger, I wasn't confident like probably I am now. So say if I needed help, I wouldn't ask them. And then the teacher would be like, why didn't you ask for help? Because I know you wouldn't help me. I say, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, try again, and you won't help me. It's either that or you don't know what you're doing. Like the teachers don't know how to help you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like that for a little while. And then I guess when I got diagnosed with Crohn's, that made me more confident to not really worry about what other people think of me and of it. So I think that getting diagnosed helped with that.
I mean, of all the outcomes that can happen with getting a diagnosis of Crohn's, I think that's a good outcome to say, I'm not going to care about what people think.
Yeah, I know if people, you're still going to get upset, but you just know. Like we discussed earlier, like you'll find out people that you want to be in life now, and don't worry about the others.
Absolutely.
Mason, thank you so much for coming on the show. Now it's time for me to ask you the last question, which is, what is the one thing you want the IBD community to know? What's your one piece of advice for everyone?
I want the IBD community to know that it's a lovely sunny day where I am in the UK. But on a serious note, with the sun, actually, it's been raining the past few days, so I'm glad it's sunny at the moment. But with the IBD community, I would say I'll give some advice to people that maybe don't have it and people that do. So the people who don't have it, don't be careful what you say to people that have IBD because don't judge them. Just try and understand it. If someone wants personal space, just don't get funny about it. Just be careful what you say, really, because you don't know how it will impact someone. And to people in the IBD community, just keep doing what you're doing if you while raising awareness. But as well, just remember that everyone's story is different and don't judge someone else's story. It's like anyone really. It's like life. Don't judge people. I think if you have something or you don't really, and if you don't, that's fine. Just get on with your journey while encouraging other people to tell their story, and then try to keep doing what you're doing. Just be kind, be nice, and have a nice sunny day.
Good advice all around. Yes. And enjoy sunny days when they come, because you're right. Unfortunately, sometimes they're few and far between. So Mason, what a joy to have you on. Thank you so very much. It was such a pleasure to have you on. And thank you everybody else for listening, and cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. This is Mason. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, subscribe and share it with your friends.